The NFL stands for not for long.
Set, Sharga and Armstead. Roll out, Walker still running out. Looks to the left, wide open, Thompson touchdown. Colin Thompson with the touchdown. There was nobody within 20 yards.
What a catch off the bobble. Colin Thompson scoops it up.
Lofting corner, the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown. The first NFL touch for Colin Thompson is a score.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Colin Thompson Show. I hope everyone had an awesome weekend. A lot to look forward to this week. Coming up here in Annapolis, Maryland, the Blue Angels are coming down today and tomorrow. So Tuesday the 21st, Wednesday the 22nd. This time last year, we were recording upstairs, and the Blue Angels come to town at about 11 a.m. today. They come back a little later on to do their practice, which is awesome. I can't hang out and watch that today. I'll be hanging out and watching tomorrow, the real thing. And it shook the house, and we made a clip, and it was really fun, and it scared the hell out of me. It sounded like we were getting bombed. So it's an incredible thing here, living right next to the Naval Academy. When the Blue Angels come to town for Navy graduation for Commission Week, it's super special. And I thought today, the most important thing with this week, with Navy graduation and with coming Monday, Memorial Day, is really taking a moment, taking some time out of our lives, living in this amazing country. It has its faults, of course. Everything does. Everybody does. But this amazing place that is safe because those who have made the sacrifice or the ultimate sacrifice for our livelihood, for us to drive in our cars and listen to this show, for me to talk into this goofy mic, for vacation, for that beach time on Memorial Day or July 4th, Veterans Day, all these amazing days that we celebrate. It's truly something that we try and hope to celebrate every day, because without these brave men and women, these academies, Army, Navy, Air Force, etc., Coast Guard, and these special people in our lives, we're not here today without them. Decades and decades and hundreds of years ago, right? Like, these people have been protecting our shores here, and I can't thank you all enough. From myself, my family, our Not For Long Media family, truly thank you. We're going to have Ryan Manion on today. Before I get into Ryan, because it is a fitting individual to have on for this kind of Memorial Day, Blue Angels, Navy graduation episode. I appreciate everybody tuning into the Colin Thompson Show, brought to you by Not For Long Media. We're presented by our friends over at Arnicare, homeopathic medicine to help with your pain relief, help with your digestion, help with your allergy relief, and something I'm doing too, right? A lot going on in our lives, work-wise, training, try to get back into the NFL, media stuff, you name it. Running some social media stuff for my mom's company, a lot of stuff going on in our lives, and expecting a little one here pretty quickly, late July. The Stress, Calm, and Wellness Kit. Tackle demanding days with the plant-powered relief offered by this set. Unwind with the non-drowsy stress relief tablets and experience the soothing benefits of our award-winning pain relief cream. Again, this is homeopathic, use from a flower. So this isn't the hard stuff. This isn't the drowsy stuff. This isn't stuff that's, drawn up with all this stuff, and then you can't read the label and know what the heck's on the back. You can check it out, guys. BoironUSA.com. The Stress Wellness Bundle is one of my new favorites here, just to take the edge off a little bit, especially after a long day and you want to unwind and be present in the moment. Boiron USA, check them out, guys. They've been amazing to us, and we've had some amazing guests. If you miss any of those guests, you can go back and listen to them or watch any of our shows on YouTube. And again, special thanks to our friends at Boiron, Arnicare. Deborah and her team over there are amazing. Let them know we sent you, BoironUSA.com. Okay, last shout out before we take it over to Ryan Manion and talk a little bit about the Travis Manion Foundation, our friends at the original Fudge Kitchen. Summer is here. Get your fudge, your sweet treats, your saltwater taffy, fudgekitchens.com. They ship it around the country. That's the best part about them. Yes, you can get it down the shore when you're down there this weekend. Celebrating Memorial Day, thanking people who have made the families of the people that have made the ultimate sacrifice, thanking the individuals that have made those sacrifices and their families as well to go defend our country, and either domestic or foreign. Fudge Kitchen, they ship it around the country, and you can get down the shore and enjoy it. You can get from Ocean City to Cape May, you can get it right there. Or, hey, you can just deliver some Jersey Shore to someone who maybe can't get there. Check it out, fudgekitchens.com. Okay, Ryan Manion's coming on today. She is the brother to the late, great Travis Manion, to a family of Doylestown folks. On this podcast, Ryan and I talk a lot of Doylestown, a place that means a lot to her and I. To me, the impact it's had on me, my hometown, I mean, it's a town that supports sports big time. Great business town, too. And my family has made a living in that town. My grandparents made a living in that town. It's in the heart of Bucks County, Pennsylvania, where I'm from. Central Bucks West football, for those that don't know, that's the mecca of football in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s in Pennsylvania and really nationally. And the Travis Manion Foundation was born in this wonderful town with all these competing high schools. Travis went to LaSalle. Right, there's Archbishop Wood where I went. Central Bucks, East, West, and South. You have Upper Bucks schools, Penridge, Souderton. I mean, that's Montgomery County, but Penridge and Bucks, Palisades, and then down towards the bottom you have your Council Rocks and your Archbishop Woods and all those different things. And I'm explaining it because a lot of people listen to the show understand some high school football in the area and how it blends in. And there's this great field in Doylestown, Pennsylvania called War Memorial Field. Pays respects. In Doylestown, we talk about this in the episode, pays respects to a lot of people that have made the ultimate sacrifice and lost their lives defending our country. How this works is, how this all blends back into Travis Manion Foundation. You've probably heard of it by now. I talk about the first time I heard of it as a little boy, and then I found it a little later and thought it was like a local thing, and then realized, holy cow, they've gone national. And a lot of it, if not all of it, has to do with Ryan Manion, Travis's brother. April 19, 2007, Iraq War veteran and 1st Recon Battalion, 1st Lieutenant Travis Manion and his fellow Marines were ambushed while searching for a suspect in Iraq, and led to a counterattack against enemy forces. Travis was fatally wounded by an enemy sniper while aiding and drawing fire away from the wounded teammates. His courageous acts allowed every member of his patrol to survive. For his actions, Travis was awarded the Silver Star and Bronze Star, for his valor. His legacy continues to grow through his work of the Travis Manion Foundation, inspiring people to make an impact by serving others. Get involved this weekend. They are planting American flags in different sites where graves are of those who lost their lives across the country. Check it out, travismanion.org. Give. They're giving times 2. People are matching your donation. Empower individuals. Travis Manion Foundation strives to unite and strengthen communities by training, developing, and highlighting the role models that lead them. We develop programs, training opportunities, and events to design and empower veterans and families to the fallen, and then inspire them to pass on their values for the next generation and the community at large. If you can give. This is a group to give to. Donate. You can shop and buy the gear. You can join their mission. Check it out, travismanionfoundation.org. Ryan, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Ryan has a fabulous podcast herself. She's a book. Check it all out. We dive into all that on the show. I hope you guys enjoy the show. And most importantly, again, take the time this week to thank somebody, to reflect. Not point fingers or go to Twitter behind your keyboard. This is an amazing place. Amazing place. We're all used to it. A lot of us are. But there's a lot of really, really deep, dark places that a lot of amazing citizens from this country went and fought to make sure that we're safe. So make sure you thank somebody over the holiday. Before I send it to Ryan, guys, I got to do a quick football thing. I have to. I got to check that box, right? The NFL schedule release came out, and it got me thinking about the things that I thought about either by myself or we discussed as a tight end room of different events or different places we're going to play or what have you for the schedule and how we handled it, how we talked through it. So I went back and peeked through some schedules and again, just trying to trigger some interest for myself of, okay, what did I think about when we were in the room? So NFL schedule release comes out. Here are the things I've thought about as a player, my teammates thought about as we sat around and saw this thing come across the wire during the middle of OTAs. First and foremost, for me, I was always looking at like who the home opener is, of course. And then when was the bye week, right? We all have families. We all know our bodies are going to be destroyed through the season. So when are we going to get some time to recover and recruit? Is it early in the year? Okay, there's disadvantages to that. Is it middle in the year? Okay, that's interesting. And then at the end of the year, it's like, man, okay, when's this Thursday night football game coming? Because that's a mini bye in itself. Where are the cold weather games? Are you playing in Green Bay or Cleveland in December, January? Or are you playing in a hot weather game like Miami or Jacksonville, early in the year in September? We all remember the times when New England would go down to Miami earlier in the year and it'd be so hot and they'd be heavily favored and lose because Miami was used to the heat. Tax-free states. In the NFL, you get paid based off where you play. So if you play back-to-back weeks in Houston and Dallas, that's a state income tax-free state. So your check looks a little bit different that week instead of playing in maybe California or Minnesota or Carolina where I played. Are there games overseas? That's a big deal. How does that play? Do we have a bye week after those games? Are we right into another week? Are there games close to my hometown or our friend's hometown and those things? And then maybe a city that we like playing in as a position group and we like going to this dinner spot, or there's a family member in this place where, hey, I want to go to dinner with them. Or maybe I have some business outside of football and I can get a coffee the morning of the game because we have a night game in Seattle and it's 4 a.m. and I'm awake and I want to grab a coffee and kind of start my day. So there are a couple of things to go into. And then I like the 1 p.m. games. I like a lot of players do. Reminds them of their childhood. Just get up and play in a routine. And then at home, you could be home for dinner at 5 to have a beer and some food and spend time with family that came to the game. Or if you're away, you're home by about 8 o'clock at night and it's a doable schedule and you're back on your normal routine. These night games really, really, really beat you up, especially if you're on the road. So there are a few nuggets that players and myself digested while we were in the NFL. Ryan Manion, guys, please enjoy. Please give if you can and rep this amazing, amazing group that, again, Ryan's daughter is going to be playing lacrosse at Navy next year. That's super exciting. But Navy is such a special place and graduation and everything going on this week. Super excited to be living in this awesome town in Annapolis, Maryland. So thank you to Boiron, Arnicare. Thank you to the original Fudge Kitchen. Thank you to Ryan from the Travis Manion Foundation for joining the show. Enjoy, guys. Have a great week.
All right, special guests today. They're all special, but some are more special than others because some are from Doylestown, Pennsylvania, my hometown. Ryan Manion from the Travis Manion Foundation. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
It's great to be here. There's so much to unpack. I don't know where to start, but we're from Doylestown. I'll tell a brief story here to those that are listening. I'm a little boy at Cold Spring Elementary School. And my dad's like, you're coming to Rotary tonight for whatever reason back in the day. And, I'm in there at Doylestown Rotary, which I think was a Doylestown Country Club is where they met. Could be wrong. And they were raising money for the Travis Manion Foundation. And he played in a golf outing back in the day, talking like grassroots, early starts of this thing. And he came back, had the sweet logo. And I don't know what's going on. I'm 6th grade. He's explaining to me your brother's story and what leadership encourages and all this cool stuff, right? So I move on and I go play football at University of Florida. This is 2012-13. And I look around and there's like 4 people running down the street with the logo on. And I'm like, these people got to be from Doylestown. I'm like, hey, typical Philly. I'm like yelling at someone across the street. I'm like, hey, you from Doylestown? They're like, what? Where's Doylestown? So I thought it was a local thing. And then I realized, oh, crap, this is national. This is international. So I'm sure it's been just an amazing journey. I don't even know where to start other than thank you. And thank you for your service, your family service. Take me back to the original nation of this thing where it started, the grassroots, like in this wonderful little hometown that we call Doylestown, or wonderful town that called Doylestown that we call our hometown because it's a special place. People believe in being philanthropic there. There's a great community, great high schools. I went to Archbishop Wood, LaSalle, all Central Bucks, West, East, South. They're all great places to grow up. So talk about like the beginning and the impact, I guess, of Doylestown, our hometowns, had on the foundation.
Yeah, I always give so much love to this town because it is the impetus for what the Travis Manion Foundation is today. If we had not gotten the support we had from this small town of 20,000 people, we wouldn't be where we are. And, I look back and I remember going to Rotary meetings at the Doylestown Country Club. Like I probably was at that meeting that your dad dragged you to. And I remember going to, the Doylestown Rotary Club said, "We want to support you." And I was like, "Yes." And it was like, this is big time. Like people are coming out, they want to help us. And, I look back to those early days and how not just how the community rallied around the Travis Manion Foundation, but how the community rallied around my family. I'll never forget the day of Travis's funeral, driving from the funeral home on one side of Doylestown to Mount Carmel Church, which was on the other side of Doylestown. And so we drove, and if you don't know Doylestown, it is literally a scene out of a movie, our main street. We have the small little county theater, the ice cream shop. I mean, it is quintessential, like what a small town looks like. And I remember driving down, we're following the hearse down the road to the church, and it's a mile and a half away from the funeral home, and the streets were lined and everybody had come out of their houses. I remember we drove by CB West and they were standing outside of the school, and it was just kids and adults and just everyone lined up on the street with American flags as far as you could see. And I will never forget that image as we drove down the street, and the feeling that we all had that this community was there for us no matter what. And we knew the days ahead were going to be hard, but we knew that this community had our back. And we felt that for the last 17 years in a really big way.
The community does really embrace military, those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. I went to Archbishop Wood, played football. Played football for Mount Carmel. Like I was in the area a lot, training at East High School, where they have some amazing memorials. Connor Bernarzik and I were friends. And then at West, War Memorial Field, like I've trained there. I broke my foot there. I've made everything. It's been huge. That place is like massive for me. It made me an NFL player, and I have forever thankful for it. Just running there by myself or whatever it was, and seeing War Memorial, and there's certain thing about Doylestown where it gives you a hug, I think, with also the touch of history, and with YMCA and all those great places. It's a wonderful place to grow up, and I'm sure it's a wonderful place to start a foundation. Take me back to the start, because man, there's a lot to unpack, and I'm trying not to be emotional because it's an emotional thing. And I remember, 9/11, when I was at second grade, Mrs. Krupus's class, Cold Spring Elementary, go back. And she's like, "Everyone sit down. There's a plane crash today." And I thought it was at Doylestown Airport. People are probably listening to this like, man, this guy's clueless. But let me remember, second grade. You don't know what Travis Manion Foundation was, and you didn't know what happened 9/11. Well, I was young, very young.
Yeah.
It's hard for your parents to explain that.
Well, you're much younger than me because I was in college on 9/11, and so was Travis. And so, I remember that morning I woke up to a phone call from my mom. I was asleep, and my mom called me, and she was frantic because, my dad was down at the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was, or my brother was at the academy, and you knew pretty quickly that this was not an accident. And she called and said, "Something's happening." I turned on the news, and I was on the phone with my mom as the second plane hit, and we watched it together live. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do right now. And my mom was crying. She hung up. "I need to get a hold of your father." And I remember my brother called my mom and, just said, "Hey, we're on lockdown. I'm not going to be able to talk to you." My mom finally got a hold of my dad, who happened to be doing a United Way service project that day. So he was not in the building. And which is crazy when you think about it. He was out planting flowers.
And there's so many stories like that, right? Like
So many.
Twin Tower, like the whole there's a lot.
Yeah. And I remember I went to class because I didn't know what to do with myself. And I'm like, I can't, nobody was all my roommates were gone. They had already left for class before, they knew what was happening. And so I'm like, I'm not just going to sit here. So I went to class, and I had English class that day. And it was crazy because when I went into class, the professor's like, listen, clearly we all know that something is going on. It looks like this is a terrorist attack. I don't know the point of teaching you today. You're not going to retain anything. And he said, take out a piece of paper. And he said, and I just want you to write, which made sense for English class. And I wrote, and later, about 10 years later, I found the paper that I had written. And I was just basically writing down all my personal fears because, I have a father and a brother in the military, and so that's all that my mind is going to. And the last line of everything, my jumbled notes, was like, I hope that this does not lead to war. And I don't know if I could live if anything happened to my brother or my dad. And, flash forward just less than 5 years later, my brother was killed in Iraq. So, it was just certainly it certainly changed the trajectory of what our life was going to look like, what my brother's life was going to look like. When he entered into the Naval Academy, it was a peaceful time in our nation's history. No one was thinking this. And, he graduated in 2004, and by 2005, he was on his first deployment to Iraq. So it was real quick. He had lost friends in Iraq before he had even graduated from college.
Man. Wow, that's heavy. Well, listen, again, being a kid from Doylestown, right? That could have been a lot of us, right? But he was built different, and as a leader and all the things I'm reading about him, he's an incredible person. You have an amazing book as well. Let's start with the Travis Manion Foundation and your movement that you've changed really thousands, millions of lives. Let's just call it how it is, from awareness to funding to support to whatever. Take me back to day one when we're, hey, like we need to do this. This is something that we need to do.
Well, again, I credit a lot of Doylestown for this. When my brother was killed, it was 2007. There was no GoFundMe or, Facebook fundraisers or anything like that. MySpace was really the only social media platform at the time. And in my brother's obituary, we had put, in lieu of flowers, please donate to the First Lieutenant Travis Manion Memorial Fund. And so for us, we were thinking, let's raise some money. We don't need a bunch of flowers in the house. Let's raise some money to give back to the institutions that meant so much to Travis. And that was LaSalle College High School, where he went to high school, and the Naval Academy. And, we were hoping if we get $20,000, $30,000, we could make a nice little impact with that. Well, and this is at the time, again, you're not just clicking a button and donating $100. You literally, it was like send checks to First Trust Bank in Doylestown. Like, you had to write a check and put it in the mail. Well, 2 weeks after Travis's death, we looked at that bank account, and there was over $200,000 in it.
Wow.
And we realized that there was something more that we could do here. And so it was really my mom who said, listen, I want to take this and I want to create something and make sure that we are continuing Travis's legacy while giving back to others. And so we did what we initially promised. We started a scholarship at LaSalle. We started a wrestling scholarship at Navy. And then from there, with the funding we had left, my mom started the Travis Manion Foundation, became a 501c3 nonprofit by 2008. And we started doing events here. So you talk about the run. We started a 5K run in Doylestown in our church parking lot at Mount Carmel. We had about 300 people show up for this 5K race. And I remember like, oh my God, look at all these people. And my dad and I said jokingly, you know, what would be amazing? Like, imagine if we could grow this to like 500 or 1,000 people. Like, that would be something special, right?
Wow.
And my mom said, no, and we called our race series the 9/11 Heroes Run. And my mom said, no, I want one of these races in every city across the country. And, you know, we were like, okay, that sounds good, but that's not going to happen. And here we are today. Last year, we had 95K races. Over 60,000 people came out to participate in the month of September in them. And so, you know, Dream realized she had the vision for what we could become. And, you know, we've taken, again, over the last 17 years, we've become one of the largest veteran service organizations in the country. And our method is simple. It's making sure that we are building a community for our veterans, for veterans and families of the fallen, to make sure that they have opportunities to go back into the communities they came from, like the Doylestown, and continue their service once they take the uniform off. And so, you know, for us, it's about just building that and scaling that and making sure that every veteran across this country, when they take off the uniform, has a place to go. And that is the Travis Manion Foundation.
Was there a moment of time through this journey, right? From when you guys started it to now, where you're like, oh my gosh, like this is huge. Our impact is immeasurable, right? Because when you can measure the impact, you're like, wow, this is cool. Like we donated X or Y. But when it's immeasurable and it echoes, and then it involves grandparents and then kids and then family, and now high schools are raising money for it and colleges are, and this impact of the Naval Academy, right? You're looking around like, holy cow, like was there a moment or time that you could pinpoint like, man, this is really impactful?
Honestly, I feel like I have those moments every day. Like every single day, there's something where, you know, I just hear a story or find out how far a message has gone, or someone that's been impacted. And I'm just like, man, it's to me, you know, I'll get a lot of calls from other people starting nonprofits that are like, help me grow. I'm starting this nonprofit. And I wish that I had this master book that could show them. And I just don't, because a lot of what happened with our organization was this grassroots movement that was beyond what any of us could control, right? And a lot of that rests on those 5 words that Travis spoke before he left for Iraq: if not me, then who? And we use that as the ethos for our organization going forward. And I think, you know, when you hear that and you think about what those 5 words mean, you want to be a part of something like that. And so for me, again, I have those moments every day. I will tell you, every time I'm at the Naval Academy, I was just there last week. I give a brief to the 2nd class midshipmen every year in Alumni Hall to talk to them about Travis. And just last week after I left, I remember thinking, I can't believe that I am standing in Alumni Hall in front of midshipmen. And then, you know, I get the message, the DMs from midshipmen like, hey, I just want you to know that was the most impactful brief I've had in the entire time I've been here. And, you know, I kind of have to pinch myself that I have that opportunity to share his story and speak to them. And, you know, with all the incredible graduates of that institution that they're bringing me in to talk, it feels pretty amazing.
Yeah, we love to live right across the street from it here. My uncle was a grad in '81. He was a fighter pilot for Iraqi War, Persian Gulf War. He's got the most takeoff and landings on the Midway in San Diego. So we're
awesome.
big. Yeah, we're big Navy folks, and we're a lot through him. Okay, so let's go back to your, you know, when you come on base here and speak, why do you think those guys are empowered to shoot you a message and say, hey, like, what is the core, I guess, message that you're passing along to them? Is it the words of your brother? Is it lessons you've learned through this foundation? What's the gist of it where you think that they get the most out of it?
I think it's sharing Travis's story, honestly. It's just sharing because, a lot of what I talk to kids about, whether it's at the Naval Academy and one of the biggest programs we have at the Travis Manion Foundation is a character development program. So we actually train veterans to go out and deliver character education to our nation's youth. We've had over 600,000 kids go through our program. And so we have thousands of veterans that are trained across the country to mentor our next generation. And, for us, it's all about making sure that they're sharing their story and talking to kids about what it means to live a life of service. And it's not about indoctrinating kids to join the military, though, listen, I think everybody should serve in this country in one capacity or another. But the idea is like, how can you be a servant leader in your own backyard? And I think there's no one better positioned to share that than the men and women who have worn our nation's uniform. And so for me, when I'm talking to kids about Travis and if not me, then who and what that means, of course, he shared those words in reference to him having to go back to Iraq for a second deployment. But what I try to really dial in with the next generation is like, Travis was living that idea of if not me, then who, well before he actually spoke those words. So it was the decisions he was making when he was in 5th, 6th, 7th grade, when he got to high school. He didn't just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to live by if not me, then who. I'm going to step out and be the one who throws down enemy fire to save my whole patrol. That doesn't happen without being big in those little moments throughout the course of your life. And so I try to talk to these kids about like, if not me, then who is like simple things. It's when you're walking by that piece of trash on the floor, you're not walking by it, you're picking it up, and like, how do you have these, if not me, then who moments every day, and moments where you lead by example, no matter how small.
Does that stem from your parents, or is that something that he had in him always?
I mean, listen, we certainly had a lot of influence from my parents. My dad's a retired colonel in the Marine Corps.
Mhm.
My mom was an incredible military spouse who really was the general and in our family and ran everything. And so my dad never talked to us about joining the military, though. My dad never tried to convince Travis to join the military. My dad just spoke to us about what it meant to live a life of service. And so that could look a lot of different ways for a lot of different people, but it was really something that he talked to us about at a young age. And I always say, like, I grew up understanding what service meant, but it wasn't until Travis was killed that I understood what sacrifice meant.
Mm.
And, that was something that we weren't taught in a way that, and I don't want to say we weren't taught that, but it was something that I didn't understand how much of an obligation we have to this small amount of men and women that have given their lives for our freedoms that we hold so dear. And so I have a different take on things, when it comes to people having a difference of opinion or, all the things that we're dealing with in our world right now. And I think about, hey, my brother gave his life for us to have these thoughts and opinions and all of it,
No doubt. It's really moving stuff. Speaking of moving stuff, you have a podcast. We're going to get in that in a second, but I want to talk about your book here before we move forward. The Knock at the Door.
Mhm.
Talk to me about it. I know that's a huge hurdle that we have a bunch of people on the pod who are always like, finally wrote a book. I finally wrote a book, and because there's so many inspirational folks out there, but for yourself, who's just, your family, then what you're doing now, the sacrifice your family's made for this country, how's all that encompassed in a book? And talk to me about that experience of writing a book.
Sure. So, my dad wrote a book called Brothers Forever. And he wrote a book about Travis, and Travis's roommate from the Naval Academy and best friend, Brendan Looney, was a Navy SEAL who was killed 3 years after Travis. And so my dad wrote a book about their story, their friendship, their sacrifice. And then a few years after my dad's book, Brendan's wife, late wife or wife, and myself, along with Heather Kelly, whose husband, Robert Kelly, was killed in Afghanistan. The three of us wrote a book to share our perspective on losing our best friends. And, for us, it was about sharing their stories, but even more than that, it was about helping people understand that we're all going to get a knock at the door. We're all going to have a moment that kind of changes the trajectory of our life. The three of us got literal knocks at the door where, people knocked at our door to tell us that our loved one was no longer there. But a knock at the door can come in a lot of different ways, the loss of a relationship, losing a job. I mean, there's just so many things. And so it's about how you respond to it. And so that, we try to put some practical application in there of how you can appropriately respond to your knock at the door.
Check it out, guys. Awesome book. I can't wait to read it. I'm stacking up my summer reading. We're about to have a baby, so I don't know how much reading I'm going to be doing, but I'm getting into it. I'm not a reader. I've only read a few books in my life, but I'm trying to relax more and read instead of run around and feel like I'm wasting time by reading. That's a personal journey I'm on. I don't mean to share it with you, but it's hard as a goer to sit down and read. So I can't wait to read it this summer. I will read it. I say it on air because that means I will have to read it now.
There you go. I'm going to hold you to it.
I got that. I have Kenny Albert's book. I had another book that someone who came on. So I'm stacked up. So, okay, let's go to your podcast as I freeze here on my screen, which drives me crazy. Neither here nor there. The Resilient Life podcast. Another one I subscribed this morning. Lindsey Vaughn was just on. You've had Lane Johnson on. You've had military members on. Podcasts are so much fun, and they're a great way to get your message out, a great way to vent on a tough day, a great way to connect with people. It gives you a certain juice, almost like a locker room feel for me when I get off the phone, especially with some of my former teammates. So talk about your show, when you started it, why you started it, and maybe some fun things you've kind of bumped into along the way, because their journey, their work, they're not always fun like everybody thinks they are, but it's a really rewarding, endeavor to be involved in.
Sure. I started the podcast during COVID. I was like everyone else in this country, stuck in my house and didn't really know what to do. And so I thought, man, let's just start talking to people. And so I started the podcast. For us, it was a great way to continue marketing efforts through the Travis Manion Foundation when we were completely closed down. And so I really started with some of our board members. My first guest was actually Alex Gorski, who is the vice chairman of the board at the Travis Manion Foundation. He also happened to be the CEO of Johnson & Johnson, and who had just put out a COVID vaccine. So the timing was right for me to bring in a real prime guest on a episode and a topic that people wanted to hear. And so being able to have him on as the first guest, and it kind of grew from there. And I really just started with my network at first. You know how it works. You start with, who do I have within my sphere that I can reach out to that'll come on, and then it grows from there. And for me, one of the things I've learned is that I always was very comfortable being interviewed. But becoming the interviewer was challenging for me at first. So it's funny when people subscribe to the podcast, they're like, yeah, I'm starting from episode 1. I'm like, start from episode 20. Okay. Because, those first several episodes, I stumbled, I felt very scripted. I felt like I had to stay in a very specific time marker and not get off the list of questions. Today, it's very different. And obviously, it's like, you want to come in and you want to have a conversation with someone. Mm-hmm. And I do a lot of prep work. When you have the opportunity to, again, my latest guest, Lindsey Vaughn, when I have an opportunity to talk with Lindsey Vaughn, I want to do my homework. But guess what? I had probably 30 questions I wanted to ask her. And we probably hit 2 of them, and the conversation went where it went. And that, I think, is the beauty of why podcasts become successful, because, people don't want to hear this back and forth of question, answer, question, answer. They want to hear conversation with people.
Yeah. Or they'll turn on the TV or they'll go to old school radio. I firmly believe in it. I call it no prep. Everyone's like, you do no prep? I'm like, no, I don't do no prep. But I follow Ryan on Instagram. I, obviously do some little bit of research, but I really don't, because I feel like it bogs me down. I'm like, I'd rather have a conversation with Ryan. We're okay. Let's start. We're from Doylestown. Let's figure out where we go from there. And then it goes, because right, you have to know some background. But yeah, it's great. I can't wait to listen to and add to my repertoire of pods that I listen to, because it's meaningful. It's enjoyable. I listen to a little bit of Lindsay's. Some of the bigger ones you get intimidated by. I'm like, all right, I'm going to save that when I have a little bit of time, instead of like when I'm on a run or whatever, because I'm a wacko. I have to constantly be working. So I'm like listening to podcasts while I'm running. It's a whole thing. We're not here to unpack me today. We're here to chat about you and this awesome.
Awesome and what I love too, what I think is so great about, again, there's millions of podcasts out there, and we've been fortunate that we've got some really good numbers and subscribers and downloads. So we've been very blessed in that way. But what I love about the idea of a podcast is like, again, I can have conversations with some really big people, and they're awesome conversations. But if I think back to some of my like favorite conversations, it's not necessarily with people that when I put it out there, they're like, oh, wow, they have this person. But if you look, when I look at the back end numbers and I see some of the episodes that perform really high, I'm like, this person isn't, I knew that this person was going to be an incredible guest, but I didn't get land this person because of their big platform. Right. And so that's what I think is so great about the idea that we can just have conversations and bring different people in to share their story. And that's really about what my podcast is all about. It's like everybody has to deal with, it's a kind of play on the knock at the door, the resilient life. Like, how do you bounce back from adversity? And there's literally no guest that I have on that doesn't deal with some sort of adversity in their life. And so it's kind of unpacking that and talking through how they built up to become the best version of themselves.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's funny you say that. It's the same thing for me. Everyone gets all excited about, I played with Christian McCaffrey for 3 years at Carolina Panthers. He was unbelievable. And he came on the show and our numbers did great, right? I was super excited. It was a great episode. He gave great insight. But Jimmy Morrissey, shout out to LaSalle High School. Jimmy and I are good friends. Jimmy's a bottom of the NFL player like myself, in and out of rosters, practice squads, trying to make it. I think it's our number one downloaded episode times 2. And Jimmy has like a couple thousand followers. Christian has like a couple million followers.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is like I had Lane on, and Lane's incredible.
Huge.
And Lane's a huge, ambassador for TMF. So, we had him on. We were his charity for the Walter Payton Man of the Year. But right after him, I had on Rasheed Bailey. So
he's a podcast with us at our media company.
Yeah. So like Rasheed comes on, and I had him in studio, and I got to know him because my trainer who trains my kids, Kenny, him do a podcast together. So I had Kenny and Rasheed on, and I loved Rasheed's story so much.
Incredible.
And we had so much interaction with that episode, because if you know him at all, he has a lot of energy, and he's really powerful in the way he speaks. And he's just got an awesome story, and it's quintessential, right? It's like the Philly kid who comes out to Doylestown for college nonetheless, right? And he's this third string on a farming college at Del Valle University, and then finds his way to the Eagles. Now he's in the Canadian League, but yeah. So you know how it goes.
It's awesome. He's an unbelievable guy, and we've done some work together in the past and kind of helped him get his podcast started. So he's the best. Okay, moving forward, 2 things. One, I want to talk about your family, but before we get into that, I want to talk about what's next with the foundation. It looks like some stuff coming up for Memorial Day. There's some stuff coming up in May. It looks like in Doylestown too. So shout those things out. We're going to put this out right before Memorial Day.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, one of the biggest things we do for Memorial Day is called the Honor Project. And so we have a service campaign. We have over 40 participating VA cemeteries, including Arlington National Cemetery, where you can volunteer. You can volunteer to go and place tokens at grave sites. we have families that will, how do I break this down the best way? So I'm a Gold Star sister. I would enter in my Travis's name and say, Travis is at Arlington National Cemetery. I'd like someone to visit him that day. And so you enter it into our database at the Travis Manion Foundation. We collect all those names, and then we have volunteers go out and place tokens. We'll hit over 10,000 graves this coming Memorial Day. And so it's two-part. Number one, it's making sure that our fallen heroes, someone's visiting them on Memorial Day. And for the families that can't be there, they know that someone is paying respect to their loved one on the most important day of the year for them. And then number two, it's making sure that our collective society understands how important Memorial Day is. And so we always say, like, listen, Memorial Day is the unofficial kickoff to summer. So drink beers, open the pool, go to the beach, do all those things. But you need to take a few minutes out of that day to understand why you're able to do those things. And so being able to bring your kids to a cemetery and have them understand these are the sacrifices that were made for us to have the freedoms that we do. That's really important to us. So here locally, Washington Crossing National Cemetery is one of our big partner sites. So we'll have hundreds of volunteers come out that morning and lay tokens down at fallen heroes' grave sites. And we run service campaigns like this all year long. So this is our May one for Memorial Day. We kick off in August with a back to school campaign where we deliver school supplies to under-resourced children across the country. We have veteran mentors that will guide them through mentorship for a day. And we do this all year long. And I think really important to note that our organization is a veteran service organization. We are serving our veteran population, but anyone can be involved in our organization. We have so many opportunities for civilians to volunteer and be a part of what we do.
I love it. I love it. And guys, check it out. TravisManion.org events, the Honor Project. Really cool. You have an awesome interactive, map, if you will, of all the different cemeteries. So listen, if you're listening to the show, and for our two listeners, which is my dad and probably my high school football coach on this wonderful show, you can go around the country and check it out. So, hey, let's move on.
Well, they're in the area, so they can head over to Washington Crossing. Right?
There you go. There you go. Lastly, and really how we kind of connected, I've always, admired from afar, but I followed you on Instagram, saw the Travis Manion Foundation, saw what you're doing. I saw you spoke at the Academy. I forget how, some way, maybe somebody's Instagram story. That's how we found out everything these days anyways. And I click online. I see your daughter's going to be playing lacrosse at Florida. Obviously, at Florida, Christ, that's my wife, at University, at the Naval Academy, hello, Colin, which is right across the street from my house here. I hear the lights. I think the women's team was playing 2 nights ago. So we try to get to games all the time. Super stoked to support her. How cool is that for your family that she's, coming back to the academy and playing lacrosse there? We're excited, at least here. And I don't even know you yet.
Yeah. Man, it's really a full circle moment for us. I was in college. My brother and I were only 15 months apart. So we were great apart. And so we were in college at the same time. I went to Widener University. That's actually where my dad went. I played lacrosse at Widener. Travis came to Navy. And so I spent a lot of time. There were many a Friday night that Travis would give me a call and say, hey, why don't you bring some of your lacrosse friends down to Annapolis for the weekend?
I know that game.
We spent a lot of time around the midshipmen. Yes.
McGarvey's. Yes. McGarvey's.
All of it. McGarvey's crab dip. There's nothing better. I think that's half the reason my daughter decided to come to Navy. But, for us, it was, and again, we never talked to Maggie about you should go to the Naval Academy. And it was something that she was around the Naval Academy a lot as a child. She understood. But, when she got the opportunity, and I'll tell you, she got a call from Coach Tim Shaw. Sydney Tim Shaw, as you know, is the most legendary women's lacrosse coach in history. Yeah. And so the opportunity to play for her. But I also wanted to make sure that Maggie understood what going to the Naval Academy truly meant, because she had rose-colored glasses on in her experience with Navy. It's being at the football games, going to the lacrosse games, seeing all the fun stuff. And so
Her
She
last
went to
name's
summer.
strong too. Strong.
Yeah, and so she went to a summer seminar last year, and that's a week where they, it's kind of a mini plebe summer for a week. And so that was really important that she did that for us to know that, it's not going to be all sunshine and crab dip. Okay. So like, it's going to be
Iron
hard.
Rooster breakfast and Rise Up
Yeah,
coffee.
exactly. And she's ready for it. And we're so excited for her. She checks in on June 27th. And, I just found a picture of my brother, and she has it up in her room, but I found a picture of Travis on I Day. And it's him right after he got his head shaved, and he's carrying a big duffel bag with like all the stuff in it. And I said, Maggie, get ready. Like, this is going to be you in a month and a half. And so, we're so excited for her journey down there. And as a parent, couldn't be more proud, obviously.
And you get to come hang out in Annapolis more, which is always a win. More crab.
Always. We're going to be there a lot. Yeah.
Well, Ryan, thank you for your time.
That's right.
I really appreciate it. And we look forward to getting you back on here and whenever due time is. And again, thank you so much. And I can't wait to support what you're doing. Everyone check it out. Travis Manion Foundation. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you so much.